Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Damon Scott, the Chief Executive of Dumbartonshire Chamber of Commerce. Thanks again for joining us for our latest Together for Business session. These are moving towards supporting businesses into the re-emerging economy, and hopefully in terms of the theme for today's event, it's a really valuable one for businesses maybe wanting to improve or to enter into a new sort of opportunity, area of opportunity, I think Shiona will tell us a lot more about that and mention the value and that it's maybe not as many barriers as we might think for these things if you approach it properly. So thanks very much for joining us. I'll mention, if you have any questions, there's a chat function. If you're familiar with Zoom, just pop your details in there. Also, do feel free to share any comments or contact details if you want to connect with anyone in the session through the chat. We'll usually have a Q&A at the end, but Shiona might want you to sort of interact during the thing. I'll let her lay the guidelines for the session. And I think that's it. We'll keep the session open for a bit, because I think we're only got about 7 or 8 in at the moment. I think we had 16 booked, so I'll have a look at that. So anyway, I'll pass over to Shiona, Shiona Campbell, who of BDS, who is our chamber champion and Together for Business champion, has been absolutely fantastic through this period in helping to support businesses. So without further ado, I will pass across to you, Shiona.
Thanks very much, Damon, and welcome this afternoon to everybody. I think I know everybody that's here so far and have a bit of an idea about what you're doing, what you do. So hopefully I'll be able to, I've covered some things that tailor things so that you're aware of what I'm talking about, and I can demonstrate some of the opportunities available to you. So thanks for joining us today for this workshop and this, with the Chamber and BDS. This is an interactive workshop, so I'm quite happy if people want to ask questions as we go along, particularly when I'm showing you things. If you want me to cover something again, or if you've got a question I've just not quite covered enough, then let me know and I'll go over it again for you. Or if I cover something too quickly, because I know the systems that I'm going to be showing you, some bits I'm going to be showing you, I might go over them a bit quickly, so tell me, give me a shout if I am, and I'll go back over them for you. So quickly about me. So I'm the director and founder of BDS. I set up BDS in 2017, founded it then, and since then I've been successful in being placed onto 2 public sector frameworks. Prior to that, worked for 2 of the largest social care charities in Scotland within the business development teams. So my job within them was to identify opportunities for them to sell to the public sector, and to both identify the opportunities and then to actually apply for them on behalf of the charities. One of the charities was the biggest social care charity in Scotland, and they turned over £60 million a year. And they did that without any organised fundraising. There was fundraising within some of their services, but that tended to be coffee mornings of maybe raising about £100, whereas we were actually getting contracts that were worth millions to the organisation. My business development, my public sector tendering is self-taught. I started with a team in a charity, and quickly the team leader went off sick and the other team member left. I was covering on mat leave, so I had to come to terms with how to do it all myself and work out processes. Although there was some established, I didn't know anything about the terminology, I knew very little about it. So I had to teach myself and get the right processes in place for dealing with a charity who employed over 2,500 staff. So the first submission that I put in on behalf of the charity, we got 100% for the quality submission. I wrote the quality submission, but I did it with others. It wasn't just me. I worked with others in the team, which is key to submitting tenders, is making sure that you involve people who are doing the job, so that you're representing that within things. So that's a bit about me. Oh, I never said that, sorry, I just noticed what I've written in the bottom of that. The two frameworks that I've been appointed on to, as a result of one of them, it's for a college in Scotland, and the framework is for an associate trainer for them. But another department within the college is responsible for their international delivery, and they were looking for somebody to add to their team. And as a result of me being on a list within the college, my name was put forward to it, and it resulted in me working virtually in China. I should have gone in February, it didn't happen. So I worked the beginning of June over Zoom, delivering in China. So had I not been on that framework, then it's unlikely that my name would have been put forward for that. So just because you're on a framework can actually open up other opportunities to you. So why sell to the public sector? In 2018-19 in Scotland, the public sector procurement spend was over £14.2 billion. There's also the procedures the same throughout the UK. So if you're willing to work elsewhere, then there's actually opportunities for you throughout the UK and potentially further afield than that as well. The procurement system throughout the EU is the same, and it's a similar procurement system in New Zealand and Australia. So the world's your oyster to a certain extent. Also in Scotland in 2019-20, 92% of the opportunities were classed as low value. So by low value, that is for goods and services, contracts that are worth less than £50,000, or for works, that's contracts that are worth less than £2 million. So for 92%, like for SMEs like you and I, that's amazing opportunities that are there. And 78% of the opportunities last year were actually what are called quick quotes. So that means that you need to be registered on the system and invited to apply for them. So they weren't openly advertised. So part of what I'll cover today is how you can get found for these quick quotes. And the government intends also that their procurement spend, so this is the UK government, by 2022 they want a third of their procurement spend to be with SMEs, so small and medium-sized enterprises. So that's businesses typically that employ less than 250 employees. So although it won't all be directly with the government, part of it could be through the supply chain, it's all opening up opportunities for businesses like us. So another few reasons are that suppliers must pay valid invoices within 30 days. In Scotland, they have to report on the invoice. I think they have to do it throughout the UK actually. So they should be paying the invoices quickly, which is really good for cash flow. Currently, because of coronavirus and the pressure on suppliers, if you have a contract with a public body and you approach them asking to be paid sooner, then they should consider it and try to hurry up the spend as well. And what this actually represented in real terms is in Scotland in 2017-18, 99% of invoices were actually paid within 10 working days, so within 2 weeks. So that's really, really good for your turnover. And last year, 63% of opportunities were won by Scottish SMEs. So all of this is telling you that there's opportunities for you as a business, and it's really there for the taking. So they've made the process easier for SMEs, and yeah, it's possibility all there for you. So I thought it might be useful, this was described as an interactive workshop, so I thought it might be useful to look at some opportunities for you. So the main places that I find opportunities are in England, all opportunities worth over £10,000, so that's contracts that are worth over £10,000, must be advertised on a portal called Contracts Finder. In Scotland, opportunities worth over £50,000 must be advertised on the portal Public Contract Scotland. In Wales, opportunities must be advertised on Sell to Wales, and in Northern Ireland, it's Sourcing NI that must be used. So in Scotland, right, so yeah, the portals, the Sell to Wales, this e-Sourcing NI and Public Contract Scotland, they'll advertise the opportunities, and also the majority of opportunities will be administered on those systems. But in England, the Contract Finders is just an advertising portal. So I think there's over 3,000 different portals in England. So it's not quite as easy a process, but you should be able to find out the details of the contract within Contracts Finder and then a link to apply for it from there. In Scotland, they'll use Public Contract Scotland at times to administer the contract, or they'll use PCST, it's called Public Contract Scotland Tender. So it's a slightly different system. So it's a bit confusing because there's the two systems, but they'll all be advertised in Public Contract Scotland. So if I've got some ready to show you. Yeah, right. So I was kind of looking at what some of the attendees, their backgrounds, and I'm just thinking there's nobody there from these companies, so I'll skip on. Right, so I know that Paul works on certification or accreditation, and I'll get them mixed up. Paul, keep me right. Yeah, so like ISO standards. So he looked at an opportunity the end of last year for it was providing certification services for Zero Waste Scotland, but I had a bit of a look to see what else I could find that potentially might work. So advertised on Sell to Wales was an opportunity for the Livestock and Meat Commission for Northern Ireland. And what they were looking for is they wanted a competent organisation to provide certification services, including registration, inspection and certification. They wanted also a third-party certification body to independently verify that producers and farmers were adhering to standards of the scheme. I'll pop a link to this in the chat, that might work best for people, and you can look at it yourself if you want to. So that was just one opportunity that I managed to find. I also found an opportunity, so this was a modification notice that had gone out, I think this one. This was also in Sell to Wales. I found it easier to find the stuff on this for Paul. So this was Her Majesty's Land Registry, and they were looking for certification for their management systems. And they wanted audits and assessment for various ISO accreditations. So they had quite a few, I think they had about 5, yeah. So they had IT service management systems, information security management systems, business continuity, environmental management and health and safety. So there was quite a range on there. But just to demonstrate there is opportunities there for you. Then bearing in mind John, I had a quick look. I spoke to John yesterday, so I've cheated slightly on some of these, but I don't mind looking stuff up and showing you if anybody's got any ideas. So North Glasgow, so this is on the Public Contract Scotland system that I'm showing you now. So this is North Glasgow Homes, so they're based in Springburn, and they had a tender out for CCTV systems maintenance. So they were looking for somebody to do annual servicing and reactive maintenance. So the value of this contract, you can see from the contract notice. So if you were to look at, I'll give you the link to this as well. So this isn't a live opportunity, it's one that's been advertised in the past. But if you were to click into that, if you look at the full notice tab, full notice text tab, then you can see from that it's a 36-month contract. It's worth £115,000. So that'll be over the 3 years of the contract, over the 36 months. And also from this, I was able to tell it's a 2-stage tender. So for the first stage, they are looking for you to complete a European single procurement document and also outline the experience that you have. So you'll do this within a template. And then from that, they'll decide if you're pass or fail, and they'll only invite those with the higher score within the experience part through to the next stage. And for that, they were talking about it being 5 people that they were going to invite forward for this. I also found a contract award notice that told me only 3 people went for the tender. And despite it being a £115,000 contract, the lowest tender they got was £52,000 and the highest was 79. So quite a variation of 3 bidders within costs there. I also found one that would suit, I think, maybe David and Aaron, if I've got this right. Well, so this is one that just closed in the last few days. I'll put this in the text. So this was a group of 8 housing associations in the Renfrewshire area, and they all came together and have put out what's called a framework for different types of maintenance that they need. So it's 8 housing associations in the Renfrewshire area, and this has been split into, I'm just looking at the part, sorry, I'm working on a screen here for the screen that you're seeing. Yeah, so you can see lots here. So what they've done is, rather than just get one supplier or a number of suppliers to deliver all that they need, what they've done is they've split it into 10 parts. And then within that, they're looking for 3 providers for each part of it. So it means that you don't have to be at an all-round, is it building it's called overall, sorry. Yeah, property maintenance, sorry. So it means you don't have to be able to cover all parts of that. You can just cover some parts of it. So like the types of areas they've got, and this would suit you as well, John, is they've got electrical maintenance, they've got roofing and external walls, they've got kitchen and bathrooms, and yeah, so it's split right down. What they did look for within this is they looked for people to have, for any potential suppliers, to have a turnover of a minimum of £175,000 for the last 2 years. So if you didn't have that, then you would have been ruled out of this. If you were looking at something and you didn't quite have the turnover requirements, what you could do is say to them, is there another way I can prove to you that I'm capable of doing this? Sometimes they'll say no, but other times they'll say yes. So within any contract, so this is called a contract notice. Within any contract notice, within section 3, it should outline what requirements you need to meet as a provider to be considered for this. If I just go down, yeah, so conditions for participation. So they are normally along the lines of, they would normally want you to provide 2 or 3 examples of similar services that you've provided. They would also, if there's any turnover requirements, the turnover requirements aren't as, they're becoming a bit rarer at the moment, and what I tend to see within contract notices is they look for credit scores. So normally, often they would use Dun & Bradstreet or Credit Safe or Experian, and they'll tell you the type of score that they would expect. But if you don't have an appropriate score, then most would actually come back to you and say, can you provide other proof? And that would probably be along the lines of 2 years of accounts or that kind of information. But I would always check that out. If I was going for a tender and it said something, I would check I had, or the person I'm working with has that. And if they don't, then I would then be asking questions around it and see if there was a way around it. This should also outline, yeah, it's got it there, any insurance requirements. So if you're new to public sector tendering and you don't have the insurance that it says on there, so standard would tend to be 5 or 10 million employers liability, about 5 million public liability, and the professional indemnity varies quite a bit. But if you didn't have quite what they're asking for, or if you just hadn't got around to setting them up, if you hadn't needed them yet, you don't have to get them immediately. What you can do within the tender application is commit to obtaining them. So what you're saying then, if you commit to obtaining them, is that if you win this contract, then you will get the relevant tenders in place, the relevant, insurance in place. And they would ask for that, or they should ask to see it before you actually, before they award you the contract. They should be asking for that. But insurance can tend to be applied for and got quite quickly, so I wouldn't ever rule that out. But what I would do if I had to get insurance for a contract is I would make sure that I'd taken that into account when I was pricing what I was doing. So I'm just seeing a couple of people have joined us. What I also had looked at, if I go back on these, is there's opportunities for lots and lots of different things. So if you happen to be like a training company, or if you're not even a training company, if what you do, you wouldn't mind teaching it to people, then there's opportunities out there. So one that's available at the moment, I think this is a current one, is South Lanarkshire Council are looking for organisations or individuals to teach within their employability framework. So that's providing training to individuals that have either been out of employment for a while or are new back into the workforce. So the types of things that they're looking for within that, they've got work-based learning, and that includes the delivery of certificated training. So first aid, CSCS, I think that's a construction one, REHIS and moving and handling, those type of things. They've also got a part of it, so you don't have to deliver all of this. You can actually, for this one, just deliver parts of it. So the type of thing they're also looking for is sector-specific equipment, resources and uniforms and PPE. So this would be, if it was at all interesting to you, it would be a good one to be on, because it's a framework, so they'll have a number of providers on it. They don't guarantee how much work you would get, but the contract is a minimum of 5 years and the maximum will last 10 years. But to get on a contract that's potentially going to last 10 years is amazing. This is what's called, sorry, I said a framework, it's not, it's a dynamic purchasing system, which means that you have to go through an assessment to start with, which is basically you put in all the details about your company, and then you would say the type of experience that you have, and that would just be pass or fail for this one. If you pass it, then you then go onto a list, and any work within the parts you're on that come out, you'll be asked to bid for it, and that would be that point that you put a cost in. There's no ties to you. If you get asked to bid for contracts, you don't have to do it. If it doesn't suit you at that point, you can bid for everything and there won't be any penalties to you for not doing that. Some things there can be penalties, so it's just something to bear in mind. A 10-year contract, you're not putting pricing in at the moment, so if things massively change for you, then you can put higher prices in. You can apply for it at any point in the 10 years, so you could actually decide to apply for part of it just now, and then as your business evolves you could apply for another part in 3 or 4 years time. So lots of opportunity within that. There's also training wise 2 associate trainer tenders out. So one for Edinburgh College, it's currently out just now, and Ayrshire College are in the process of developing a dynamic purchasing system, and it'll begin out, I think it's the middle of next month. I think it should be out by then. So the Ayrshire College Associate Trainers is another dynamic purchasing system, so you can enter it at any time. The Edinburgh College one is one that's a framework, and they'll just have, I think it's about a month where you can apply for it. But lots of opportunity within the colleges for training if that's what you're interested in delivering. So has anybody got any questions, or is there anything you'd want me to have a quick look search for that would be helpful? Have you thought your business might be able to sell to public sector but you weren't really very sure? I don't mind going through a quick search either on Public Contracts Scotland or Contracts Finder.
I'd be interested to see if there's any electronics tenders out there.
So what kind of things, Philip? I did a search earlier for printed circuit boards.
Yeah, printed circuit boards anything. Or, yeah, I didn't think so. Printed circuit boards or printed circuit board assemblies.
Right. Yeah. I tried PCB and I tried printed circuit board. I think so the type of thing you sell, Philip, potentially your market's the Ministry of Defence?
Yeah, possibly. It might be that we are selling to companies who are then selling to the public sector, so it may not come up with anything, but just out of interest, really.
I struggled to find anything when I looked earlier.
Worth a try.
The MODs probably, or the other thing you can do, like you said, if you know that you would supply the suppliers, is keeping an eye on who's winning things and approaching them.
No worries. No, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah. That's what somebody that I've worked with has done, is they hadn't really considered selling to public sector before, and they actually saw them as a kind of competitor of theirs. And then by talking to others, they saw that actually they could be their coach, so they could be supplying to the public sector either through Business Gateway or through Scottish Enterprise. So what we did is we looked at contracts that Scottish Enterprise had awarded and who they'd awarded them to, and then he's approached them directly, and they're actually a big proportion of his work now. So checking out who's winning things is also really, really useful to do, which I think is what John's doing, is he's a subcontractor at the moment for people, but ultimately wants to move in more to the main supplier role. So,
see, in regards to that, you're actually talking about who's winning stuff. Obviously, I'm quite lucky just now with the amount of kind of contractors that I know, and I'm kind of getting involved with it all just now.
Yeah.
When I worked for ScotShield, we went and did the tendering process to become a framework partner in regards to the work we were doing, security, CCTV, electrical-wise. And we were part of a framework when it was ScotShield, Forth Electrical Services, and I think Chubb at the time.
Yeah.
So once I get in the door, I know everything that has to be done. It's just to get through the door initially. Now, when I was looking at the Public Contract Scotland website when I very first started the business, it was more driven at, right, the company had to be established, you have to have this bit of paper to say you can do this, and vice versa. But what is happening now is obviously I'm going to be select approved, fingers crossed, by the middle of next month.
Yeah.
And also I'm going to be SSAIB, which is the intruder industry, approved within the next couple of months as well. See, if I'm going for contracts at this moment in time, can I say, just like you were talking about there with the insurance situation, that I will be approved when it's awarded? Is that acceptable, or do you have to go by the letter of it to say that, yes, I am right now? Or would you be, is it okay to say it when that happens, it will be?
With the position that you're in, I'd be saying I'm in the process of doing this at the moment, and I'd be offering them proof that you've got it.
Right, okay, because I've paid for everything anyway just now, so I can show them receipts and the kind of contact details and the dialogue between the company and myself to show that we're doing it. But as I say, it's not going to be a big problem. It's only over the next couple of months in case something jumps up and I go, I really want to go for that, and I've got a good chance of getting it, but I don't want that stopping us.
They should be checking everything out to check that people have got the membership and stuff. Okay. So I would, but I don't think there's any harm. If you're actually going through the process, then I would tell them that. If you were at all worried about it, what I would do is put a question in the Q&A and ask if that would rule you out. But they should take it because you're actually going through it. They should be okay with it. Damon, if you've got something.
Just to a really interesting point. Actually, I wonder if you could comment on that, just in terms of some of the conversations and experience that have maybe had in the past. I think when we did our we ran one with Strathleven regeneration,
Yeah.
and people were asking, and it's just a really interesting concept, sort of on a broader level for all businesses. So for instance, there were small businesses looking at a contract that was quite big for them, and levels of insurance that were maybe detailed, and I guess think when you haven't got things in place, that John's is slightly different because it's working towards something tangible, but it might be insurance, it might be the number of staff, where you can say I would recruit for at the moment we've got this many, but we would be bringing it's just those sort of things that maybe that you don't have in place now, but that you can maybe not being scared to put in things that you would do as a result of getting the contract.
Yeah, there's that, and there's also sometimes it says on it like membership of or equivalent. So with that, you actually might find that you've got other things in place that are actually the equivalent of that. So you might have policies and procedures in place that would actually back up that. So you don't always need to have it, but there's things that definitely would make you stand out from the competition if you have, which is worth considering as well.
And the insurance is a really good one, because there's no point in having £2 million insurance on the basis that you might get a contract, sort of thing. So I think that am I right? They'd be fairly relaxed about you saying that you would increase your insurance to meet the requirements.
It's normally a yes/no. It's normally a drop-down box. And if so, often it's yes, no, or I commit to obtaining. So it's because they've got that option within it, they definitely recognise that they don't want everybody just going out and getting it on the off chance they might get a contract.
I don't know if you're going to come on to this as well. We'd also talked about sort of not being scared to maybe collaborate if it's, for certain sort of contracts. Again, it's that way that I feel like they've moved more towards encouraging and allowing smaller businesses to access some of these contracts.
One of the key questions within the ESPD is around, so the ESPD is a European single procurement document, and in England it's a selection questionnaire, but it's much the same questions in both of them. So they go through lots of information about your company. They then ask you about if the company's, or if anybody connected or controlling the company's committed certain offences. So you work your way all through that, and then very near the bottom, there's a question round about the experience that you have of delivering similar contracts. Sometimes this is pass-fail, and other times it's a scored element. And when it's, so with that, as a new company, you don't necessarily need to perform similar contracts, and what you can use is your experience in a previous role, or somebody who works for you's experience in a previous role of delivering similar contracts. Or you could use if it's a collaboration, then one of the partners might have the experience. Or if you're subcontracting it, you could rely on the experience of the subcontractor or elements of it subcontracted. So you don't always, as a business, have to have the experience of delivering that. So a lot of it's about reading it and making sure you understand it. And if you don't, then asking questions round about it.
Okay.
So
it's good that you're... Sorry, Damon, on you go.
No, just saying thanks. That's good for clarifying.
In regards to that, it's really interesting you talking about that there, with collaborating with other companies, because that's exactly what's happening to us just now. We're probably getting used rather than having the contract that we can deal with anyway. And I'm just waiting for them to sign off the bit of paperwork because they're the main contractor. So it makes perfect sense, because when I'm going for stuff, I want to go as a main contractor now rather than being the subcontractor. So by that, you explaining that, it does make a perfect sense actually what's actually happening and how they're getting a lot of work, because they can then say they've got the 7 staff that I've got, they've got the experience that I'm supplying, so they don't even need to have it. No. Do you know what I mean? Initially.
But on the upside of that, it means that you can use the contract they've got on your behalf to put in for your own sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's been quite good. The last year's been good, so we'll be able to do that over the next year anyway.
A lot of people, when I speak to them, are quite worried because they're too new. And also some people, when I speak to them, they'll say, oh, we don't really deliver any contracts. And I'm like, yeah, but you've been trading for a year. You've got money coming in, you're delivering contracts. And what I would then say is think of the people who you've taken the most income from, those that you've raised the most invoices with. So think of those, or the people that you've been dealing with longest. And often when people start up businesses, they actually have customers that come with them. So you've been dealing with them longer than your business has been around, and they know you. So yeah, so it's remembering all that kind of stuff. So I don't mind going back to that later if anybody wants me to go over any kind of parts. Or well, I might show you that just now. So what I would do, that if I was on Public Contract Scotland, so if I have a one-to-one with somebody or I meet them, then I would start immediately, like if somebody said I was interested in or whatever. So I would kind of take keywords from their business and what they supply and maybe do a bit of searching around about that. So I think Gossia does like, try to think of the right terminology now. If I've got the right person, Gossia. Gossia supplies the cyber essentials.
Exactly, you're right, Shiona, yeah.
So looking for that kind of thing, you'd put in cyber in there.
Exactly, cyber essentials or cyber security.
Yeah, and looking for options there. So there was something yesterday. Yeah, I was talking to one of our colleagues yesterday. I spoke to a few people yesterday. And this cyber security, so this is a contract award notice, which can tell you quite a lot as well. Yeah, I'll cover that in a second. So this is for contract for cyber security software renewal. And if you scroll down it, then it's a contract award notice, so it's telling you who won this contract. And they actually only received one tender for this opportunity. So it shows you there's still things out there untapped. It tells you who won it, and it tells you the value of the contract, which was £26,000. What I missed when I was speaking to Gossia's colleague yesterday, and I've got an email ready to send to them, is this was awarded against a framework. So this is a Scottish Government framework. They should have had more than one person on it because it was a framework. But out of that framework, when they did a mini competition, which is what they'll have done, asked, was ND able to deliver and potentially pricing round about that, only one organisation's come forward for that. So there's definitely things untapped. So yeah, right. So when you're looking, if you're trying to decide if there's options for you as a business, everybody here is based in Scotland, so the options, the information you can get from the Public Contract Scotland website is absolutely amazing. There's different types of notices published on that. So there's contract notices, so they're ones that are telling you there's an opportunity there and telling you that there's potential, like they're inviting bids. Then there's contract award notices, so that's telling you that a contract's been awarded. So within that, you should be able to tell how many people have bid for it and get an idea of the value of the contract. So this is where you can get information about the suppliers, so potentially who you could then be supplying. And then you also get prior information notices. So they're telling you that there's an opportunity going to be coming up. So if I look at one that I know of, yeah, so this is Ayrshire College, the training one that I mentioned. So this is a notice that's telling you they're going to be looking for people to deliver this. And when you actually look at this, it tells you about an event that they were planning on holding. It was last Thursday. But by noting interest in that, you then get an invite to the event and you find out more about it. So sometimes the prior information notices are used as a way of them scoping the market and seeing how much interest there is there, how many suppliers there are. Sometimes they'll use it to get input into a contract so that they can shape it, so that they can make sure it's current for the market that's there. So these are really, really useful tools. All the types of notices are really, really useful tools. So that's something to keep an eye on generally, and also when you're first thinking of tendering. So if you were thinking of it, you also can get an idea of who your competitors might be out there as well, so you can supply who your competitors might be. So, right, so one of the key kind of things round about tendering, right, so I mentioned at the beginning that 78% of tenders within Scotland aren't publicly advertised. So these are what are known as quick quotes. They should be valued for goods and services under £50,000, and for works that will be less than £2 million. So works are kind of construction type stuff. So quite big contracts for small businesses. All of these are really good options, but you need to be registered on the system to be invited to these. So one thing that you need is for Public Contract Scotland, you need a supplier finder profile. So if you aren't already on it, or even if you are, I would say review your profile if you're already on. If you're not on it, then sign up with it and make sure you have a profile and make sure it's published. Within that, when you're doing your profile, think of, you've got an opportunity to have 6 keywords. So what I would do is brainstorm different words that you associate with your business and then choose the 6 that best represent you. Think about the memberships you have, what makes your business stand out, also where you're based, because if you're looking at local authority contracts, they should be inviting somebody who's based within their local area. So if they can't easily identify where you're based, then you could be missing out on opportunities, and also which geographic area that you cover. So within the quick quotes, when they're inviting people, they should be looking for an SME, somebody they've never worked with before, and also somebody who's local to them. So there's lots and lots of opportunity there. What I've done is I've got, yeah, right, so this is a Public Contract Scotland website. I'll show you quickly how to do this. What I've done is signed in, and it takes you to, as soon as you've logged in, it takes you to the supplier area. And then within this, on the left-hand side, there's supplier finder profile. So, oh, it logged me out too early. Right, so once you get into that, then you've got this screen. So the first bit tells you about the supplier finder profile and how it works. So basically you complete this, and then if a buyer's looking to invite people for a contract, then this is the information that they will see about you. The search terms they use potentially will be around about your keywords, so you want to be thinking about what they might be searching for. The top part's quite easy to do. Make sure your supplier finder profile is published. Believe it or not, some aren't, and you can't be found if it's not published. The basic details about your company there, name, address, email, all that kind of stuff. Then you think about which regions you want to be working in. I encourage people to make this as wide as they can, because at the end of the day, if you get invited to something, you can always turn it down. But if somebody can't find you because you've not got the right geographic area ticked, then you can never be invited for it. So I would encourage you to have that done. So all you do is you highlight the area and click it over, and it moves over to the other side so it's selected. Right, so the company description, so the information I was telling you to think about, like the memberships, the areas you want to cover, I would always start it with your business name is based in, and then I would say the local authority area that you're based in, because that will be the tick in their box if they go looking for you. And then I would say, but covers, and whether that be the whole of Scotland, whether it be the UK, but I would make that clear within there. I would make sure the company description, so you've got 4,000 characters, so I think that's about 600 words, so you've got quite a lot. You don't have to use it all, use as much or as little as you want, but you just complete that with details about the company. So I would put any memberships and accreditations, so John, your select stuff would come into that. Paul, your you're I always get mixed up with what you are. You're certified, not certified like that, but you're, yeah, so Paul delivers like ISO, so he can get you accredited with ISO, so he's established with the right bodies for that. Then I would also put in memberships, accreditations, anything that makes you stand out, and enough information for a buyer to decide whether it's worth inviting you or not, whether they should be inviting you, which obviously you want them to do. So it's important to consider geographically where you want to work. Right, so Paul's ISO management certification, so he would be wanting to put that in there so that buyers are aware of what he does. But yeah, it's just about covering as much as you can, but not in too detailed. Think about how you want to lay it out. You can't use bullet points, but what I often use is a dash to act like bullets in it, and to separate information and make it quite readable. I would think about the 6 keywords, so the brainstorming thing for that, and I would put my logo in and then tick that you're an SME as well. So has everybody got supplier finder profiles? And has anybody got any questions round about that?
I'm on public Scotland. Sorry, on you go.
But yeah, just a wee quick question with your keywords, Shiona.
Yeah.
So I wasn't quite clear. Should you put your local authority where you are as one of your keywords, or is that
No?
Just no? That's
sorry. I would put that in the company description.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
So for yours, I would be saying we are a social enterprise based in Western Bartonshire.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, that's great. Thank you. I wasn't quite sure if that was meant to be a keyword.
So when you sign up for Public Contracts Scotland, there's 2 elements. There's an alert profile that forms for you, and then there's a supplier finder profile. You want both to be active. The alert profile is the alerts that you get whenever there's opportunities that are relevant to you. Most people would probably get them on a kind of daily basis. And then the supplier finder profile so that you can be found by suppliers. So remember, 78% of opportunities are done in that way. So you want to make sure it's a compelling profile that you have.
Sorry, John, did you have something?
No, it was just that I was actually going to ask the same question.
Oh, right. No, not in the keywords, the company description.
I mean, see, in regards to the actual profile as well, I'm already on Public Scotland contract, but I don't think I've actually activated this section you're even talking about here. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, so you want to activate it because you don't want to be missing out. And even if, I think the smaller contracts are a good way in.
Yep, no, definitely.
And especially if you're thinking about housing associations, often the smaller organisations that smaller value contracts, just because they are smaller, and they're more likely to be done through the quick quotes and the supplier finder profile.
Yeah.
So.
Do the suppliers see this information as well, Shiona?
No, you can only see it if you're a buyer.
Yeah, okay, right.
So I can't go on looking for others. You can only do that if you're a buyer.
Sorry, I'm getting my terminology mixed up.
So yeah, the buyers would see it. So once you save and view it, I can't do it because I've not filled enough of it in. It comes up with a smaller, a more condensed version.
Okay.
So for that reason, I probably would steer away from using 4,000 characters because you kind of want things to fit on people's screens. But you can still, 4,000 characters is a lot worse. You can still put quite a lot of information in there and still keep it condensed. I think we looked at your supplier finder profile, Paul.
Yeah, but I never seem to get anywhere with, I never get contacted for anything, so I don't know if it's set up correctly.
Right. Well, I'll have a look again with you.
Yeah, okay.
I'll get a Zoom call with you and look at it. I don't mind having a chat with the MD if they're wanting to go through this, or any other elements, that's fine. some of the things I'd be considering if you're thinking of tendering is, it's really important to consider where you want to be working, and also geographically and what products you want to be selling, which can then help you hone down which suppliers you could potentially be supplying. As well as there being, I didn't cover this in it, as well as there being so there's councils, there's like the Ministry of Defence, Department for Education, are all public sector buyers and all very, very big organisations. But you also have other publicly funded bodies that are a lot smaller and who also have requirements to buy things, and often their contracts can be a lot smaller and also much easier to perform as a smaller company and a good gateway into things. So I was looking at one a month or so ago, and it was the Gaelic speaking organisation for Scotland. It was about HR services, but within the information that they had in the tender documentation, they actually employ 22 people. So they won't get a huge amount of public funds, which then mean that their contracts aren't going to be massive, but it could actually be a really good opportunity for a very small business. So yeah, there's lots of different opportunities there. So what I would also say to you is that, so make sure your supplier finder profile's completed, publish it, so make sure it's not unpublished there, make sure it's published, and also set up the alert profiles. So your alert profiles, yeah, it's on the left hand side, so once you've logged in as well, and you just create a profile. What I would do is, if you think you're getting a lot of irrelevant alerts through on a daily basis, is you can go back and hone it and work out exactly what irrelevant things you're getting. But a bit of a warning is you'll always get some irrelevant information, and it's a matter of making sure that you're not missing out on the golden nuggets within that, making sure that you are getting things. The other thing I would say is, I know that there was 3 people signed up from the one company today. I would try not to have more than one account within your business, because you can lose things. So the charity that I worked for, the first charity that I worked for, there was 3 within the team. I was in and somebody off on maternity leave. And we each had our own Public Contract Scotland account. So one person was off sick, one person had left, and one person was on maternity leave. And when you look at the quick quotes, so we actually got invited to a quick quote on the account of the person that was off on maternity leave. We'd submitted a tender, and it was a 2-stage tender, and the response was sent to the person who'd left the organisation, and neither of these accounts were getting monitored. We luckily didn't miss out on either opportunity. The first one because the buyer got in touch with us and said, you've not responded to this yet, and because you have to accept quick quotes, and we hadn't done that, but we were then left with a week to respond to something. The other one, I happened to be at a Meet the Buyer event, and I went and asked the buyer when they were going to be publishing this tender, because I knew it was 2-stage and we'd been waiting ages for it, and they said it's out. So I'd then to go back and get access to somebody's email account, which isn't always easy. So what I personally would use is a generic email that more than one person in the office can access. I would make sure one person's responsible for reviewing it and reviewing the opportunities, or even just alerting somebody about them. But I wouldn't have it in an email address when you're a bigger organisation that could ultimately go unanswered. So that's one thing I'd be careful about. So yeah, your supplier finder profile is really, really important. So what else I was going to talk to you about was, so there's different types of opportunities available to organisations. So you can be, opportunities can be published that are single supplier contracts. So say North Glasgow Housing wants all their kitchens redone in every council house. So they know they want that done, and they know the period of time they want it done, and so they could just choose one supplier to do that. You can then also get frameworks. So frameworks could also be North Glasgow Housing, and they know that they want to say again the kitchen replacements, but they're not really sure that all the kitchens need replaced, and they're wanting to do it over a period of time. And they also have seen that maybe that would work with a few different suppliers. So what they could do is publish a framework. So for a framework, there's no guarantee of business, but once you're on it, any requirement they have associated to that must be offered to somebody within the framework. So it's a bit more complicated, but in essence, it's really an approved supplier list. They can only go off framework, they can only buy from another supplier if the people within that framework cannot service it for them. Some frameworks are ranked, so the top supplier would get offered all work, and it's only when they refuse it, it would then work down the rankings. Others are the most suitable supplier would get offered it. Other ones it's done as a mini competition, and some it's actually done on a kind of round robin basis. So it would actually go round everybody. So lots of opportunities for frameworks. The risk for the buyer isn't as high with frameworks. So that could mean that as a new supplier, it's easier for you to get onto. And then there's dynamic purchasing systems. There's differences between frameworks, so you can apply at any point during it, like I said, and also they shouldn't really be buying off that. It's only the people on that should be getting invited to bid for things. You're not putting a price in at the beginning, you put that in for every opportunity that comes up, and you can apply for as little or as many as you want. So at the moment, there's lots of dynamic purchasing systems out there around about PPE, just because of a huge requirement for it at the moment. But Scottish Government has a number, so like one about digital technology services, one called Internet of Things, telephone services and network advice. But if you have a look, there's lots of different, there can be lots of different dynamic purchasing systems. The Department of Work and Pensions have quite a few round about the training elements and employability, but there is opportunities out there. So they aren't as onerous for you to get onto as a business, and also there's opportunities there for you as a business to get onto at any time, and also to change your offering. So every school in Scotland's been given money for closing the attainment gap within schools, and some local authorities are operating dynamic purchasing systems for them. So they assess somebody to check they're suitable to be put onto that dynamic purchasing system, and then anything that they have, any requirements they have, they will ask the people within that. Some tenders are split into parts or lots, like I explained earlier, which means as a smaller business, it's much more accessible for you. You don't have to deliver all elements of it, you could just be delivering part of it. So that's a really, really good option for you as well. So there are different options out there, and lots of them. So kind of to finish up, the steps I would take, or I would advise you to take if you're preparing to tender, is to consider who your customer might be. So thinking geographically where you want to supply, and also who might use your product. Think of them. Also sign up to the relevant portals once you've identified the customers. So if it's Scotland, sign up to Public Contract Scotland, but if you were interested in education, then Public Contract Scotland and also Department for Education's portal. For any portals that there are, complete, if there's the capability to do so, complete a supplier finder profile, make sure it's published. And then within your organisation, make sure you have a process in place for reviewing any opportunities that come out. So I would make sure that somebody's looking at it on a regular basis. And as you review more, you'll become aware of the type of thing you're looking for. But really, you would be concentrating probably on the value and the duration, that kind of thing. But as you build it up, you'll get to know the different elements that you're interested in. And it's then easier to know if it's definitely an option for you, or if it's something that maybe needs a bit more work, if you need to know a bit more about it before you go forward with it. If you're interested in it, then I'm happy to have a chat with you, or there's other organisations that do much the same as me, so speak to somebody from one of them. And also check out opportunities and get familiar with the systems. is what I'd say. So I said this was interactive. My next slide's round about questions. Has anybody got any questions? Do you want me to show you anything? I'm quite happy to do some searches if that's useful, or answer any questions that you have.
I'm going to take the silence and lack of hands up as a as an indication that you've provided a very thorough insight, Shiona. I'll fill a little bit of time with here, because I usually do mention it, give a wee roundup anyway. But
I just say before that, I've got a Facebook group, and
okay.
You're welcome. It's a free Facebook group. I do teaches every week. Oh, I've written down somewhere and I've lost it. What I do, so on a Monday I do a spotlight on, so I look at a tender opportunity and go over why that would be good for businesses like you. I do a Tuesdays, we look at different terminology. A Wednesday we do a tiny teach. So this morning I did a Facebook Live round about the question of the experience that you need and how you present that. Thursday we do a did you know, so a kind of fact round about tendering. A Friday I do getting to know you. Saturday or Sunday we do a fact, a tip, sorry, and we also have a post around about the spotlight on as well. So anybody that wants to join, you're welcome to join.
Brilliant. I think Philip's just put that into the chat, so people can kind of go and grab that. Just while I remember as well, if you don't know, you can actually save the full chat by clicking on the chat function, and there should be 3 dots with, I think, more on them, and you can save the chat to your device. So that's a very simple way of getting all the information that we've been sharing today. But yeah, so as I said, I normally do a wee sort of round up, and I think there's a few points to reiterate. There is the value of these contracts. I'm actually amazed at the lack of competition for some of these. You know, you know, when you said only three put in for something, you know, it shows what a real opportunity there is there if you do it right and get your you know, get your business presented in the way that provides a strong application for these. So there's real opportunity there for businesses to expand their reach into, if you're doing it already, do it more, or if you're not doing it already, to sort of enter into a really lucrative market. So I think that's a value. What I do always say as well, having been involved in this myself, and I get the sense some of you guys have share my feelings. You know, there's a real, we were discussing this beforehand, and there's a real danger with I'm going to sort of give Shiona a wee prompt here, because I think having an expert in to help you get your initial sort of structure in place, so that you've got all the toolkit that you can adapt and tweak depending on the you know, not every opportunity is the same, but if you have a toolkit and have the basics in place and have an expert you know, maybe helping with your first one, I think that's absolutely invaluable. And I think you can find, in my experience, it can be a real false economy learning for yourself over a period. You know, I think I looked at some tenders. It must have taken me 4 days to put together the proposal and get everything together each time. You know, I added up that time, and out of those 4, I didn't get a single one. And I think giving yourself a real fighting chance and getting an expert involved is a really valuable investment, and will save a lot of pain sort of in the future. So just a wee plug there for expert advice. But don't, you know, I think there's a danger as well when you go through that, is that you get disheartened and you think it's not for you. And I think what Shiona's saying there is, at the moment, it's changed significantly to open up and make it easier for small businesses to go in either on their own or together or as part of a framework. So again, don't think it's not for you. I think there's, you know, if you put in a bit of work at the beginning, it can be pretty much for most businesses. I think Philips is a very specialist business, so it's probably part of something else in that area. But I'm sure there will be opportunities because Philips actually supplied to, you know, the NHS, for instance. So there definitely is need for his product. It's just finding the avenue in. Okay, so that's. Do you want to add anything else, Shiona?
Just that if anybody is thinking about it, I don't mind having a chat with you. There's no harm in spending a bit of time and looking at something. And like you were saying with the whole, like, getting really disheartened with things, key to that is actually reviewing the opportunities and understanding them. And that is what I would try to do with people when I start working with them, is make sure that I review things so that they understand the risks of going for something and that they're not putting in time for something that they've got absolutely no chance at.
Yeah.
I
think analysing the opportunity, I think you're right, because then you start to weigh up whether you're going to invest your time in going for it. Rather, I think new businesses tend to try and go for everything and then just never go back to public sector tendering. So unless anyone's got any questions before we round up, bang your hand up if you have. I think obviously a few people inputted there. That's really kind of you, Shiona, to offer to have follow-ups with people, so thank you for that, and thank you for a really insightful presentation today, and I hope, you know, all of you will go off and consider taking this opportunity and connect with Shiona. Before I forget, actually, Philip's just put in the chat a good way of just keeping connected in other ways is to attend our networking session on Tuesdays at 9:30. So everyone's welcome to join that. I know there's a few of you here that attend that. So next Tuesday, keep a look out the links in the chat, and I'm sure you'll get a reminder about that in advance as well. So please do sort of continue to be part of what we do and connect with other businesses and experts. Okay, so thanks again for everyone for coming, and hopefully see you at our other events soon.
Thanks very much, everybody.